What's up, everybody? It's your favorite Magic Moments favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the Giant Legion Devastator from Mech Invasion. Now, we've been looking at all of these pieces that they've come out in sets of 2, which are all available on my channel, except for the last 2, maybe because this might go up first before the last 2. Either way, they will be coming soon. I promise you that review's already done before I did this. It's just a matter of what I wanted to get out first, or was able to get out first logistically. All of this is on loan to me from Scott M., who's been very gracious, and not only had them all sent directly to me, but even sent one set back to me after I'd already returned it to him so that I could combine it for you. And because I've already shown all of the transformations into all of the modes, we can go ahead and start combining immediately, but we need to first take a look at accessories. Alright, so you get his weapons, take the one with the purple piece, and then take your ones that are more identical, doesn't matter which. There's 2 notches here underneath in the gunmetal part. One is smaller. That will align with a notch on the magazine of your purple piece. So get that sorted. And then take this one and add in, and this can go really either way, but there's a little peg here that will align with 2 slots on the tip of the barrel of this one. And then take your other piece and sort of sandwich them together. Alright, then you have these 2 pieces, and they connect by inserting this tab here that's in this shaped one into a slot on this one. And then once you have these 2 separate sections, make sure the peg is facing towards the back. There's 2 tabs here that will interlock on the back of this piece. And that is your gun. And then you take the silver bit and peg it into the palm of his hand, wrap their fingers around it, and he holds it just fine. Now, I'm not sure if it's considered an accessory or a gimmick, but either way, we'll show it now. If you lift up the head, you can bring out the more goggles look, and then you can also rotate the crane around, and there's like a little targeting thing here, and then you can extend this, and underneath here is a blaster. And then he can kind of have that look as well. So, kind of cool. Now, I think these legs can technically go on either, but they included a poster with the last 2, and they have this guy on this leg and that guy on that leg. So that's just what I'm going to go with. Alright, so we're going to rotate this up, which I just had down to make him stand easily. That just tabs in straight. This comes over and tabs into 2 ports on both sides. And I guess maybe one in the back also. Yeah. All right. There's one side oh, it keeps popping out. Come on. And then these side pieces also go into the side as well. So let's try this one. I'll tell you what, on this one, I'm going to get these tabs lined up first. Into the side here. I don't know if I can. I'm just going to leave it apart. Rotate this up. Slide it into the port. There's a double peg connection. That one went in nice. Double peg connection. That one went in nice. And then these, yep, that's in there. Okay, so is this? Oh, there's a separate set of plugs. I'm an idiot. Forgive me. Okay, now that should work nicely. There we go. Beautiful. All right, we got it. And then we're just going to drop these down, kind of like Combiner Wars style. And same on this side. And I'll clean it up and we'll take a look at it. And we'll get in tight on the head sculpt for Dennis. And I think it looks good. It looks imposing. It looks intimidating. I think that the gunmetal silver works well. Unfortunately, it kind of has the dead eyes. The eyes are lit up a bit here, but that's because I have a light coming in from behind his eyes that I don't think most people would normally have on their shelves or the display areas. And then, of course, if you use the light up feature, that's going to work out just fine also. However, you know, like I've said 1,000 times and will continue to say, there is a way to paint the eyes and have them illuminate. There's a number of different people that have done it. There's plenty of different kind of examples to pull from, the most obvious one being the Fans Toys Omega Supreme. All right, so let's talk about articulation outside the head sculpt, which is great. So head's on a ball peg, you get up to there, down, there's an additional neck flap you can kind of use to cheat. Swivel, and a bit of a confused Devastator face. All right, let's back out a little bit. I'm going to drop the camera as well so that we can take a look at this. Would you look at it? All right, shoulders, we're going to do both. The bucket here can kind of get out of the way to utilize a ratcheted universal that gets you out to 90 degrees. And then a ratcheted 360 around that holds its weight pretty well. You know? Bicep swivel. Single hinged elbow that gets you 90 degrees. Talked about the bicep swivel? There it is anyway. Wrist swivel. Hinge up, down. Thumb is on a ball peg, comes out to a secondary and tertiary knuckle. And all of the fingers here are on a ball peg at their base and then come out to a secondary and tertiary knuckle that are pinned hinges as well for fully articulated hands. Let's see here. All right. Get that out of the way. Oh, we will do the shoulder over here. So this one's a little limited because of the cab of Mixmasters. So you get much more range on this side than that side. Waist swivel. Is there an ab crunch? I feel like there was. No, I'm not getting it. Also, this chest piece here, and I talked about this in the review of these two, but this chest piece has a tendency to come undone a bit. All right, I'm going to back out, and we'll look at this kind of El Total. There's an issue that I have here aesthetically. It plays into proportions, but mainly just kind of plain aesthetics. And that's the kind of gap here between the waist and the pelvis. And it really feels like that should have an ab crunch. Like, I hope I'm not missing it. If I am, I apologize. Look in the comments, I'll pin it. You don't have to tell me 1,000 times. It's not a TPS report. All right, so there's just something about this gap here. I know it's allowing for articulation. I get it. I totally understand it, but it is sort of off-putting in the same regard. All right, let's get this arm out of the way. I apologize for my hand being in the way. Hips go out to the side, 90 degrees. Some of this stuff has a tendency to kind of come unpegged. Forward to just shy of 90 degrees, but it doesn't hold the weight well. Not that it would need to. We'll see how balancing works out in the final thoughts. Back, decent range as well. Not the full Monty, but you don't really need the full Monty to be an effective posing piece. Thigh swivel. Single hinge knee, not the greatest range. Let me check this knee. These hip ratchets are not the strongest either. Same kind of range on the knee there. And then ankles. So no ankle tilt up. You do get an ankle tilt down. And then you get a rocker. It's limited, but you do get it. And then there he is from the back. I like a lot of like the kind of visual motifs that follow through, like all of the kind of treads and wheels and stuff that are available, like visible rather, on the back. Like, I just think that's kind of smart, clever stuff. I think a lot of the interesting conversation regarding this piece surrounds size comparison and scale. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Size comparison wise, I kind of want to go through an array of figures because I think that this is going to work out great for like a Chug collection. Like, I know it's kind of, Chugster piece scale, but like, and I know that Hasbro is doing a Devastator, but I think that this is going to work great. Like, it looks stylized enough that I think it matches with a lot of Chug looks. So in the same breath, I also think that like it's imposing enough where like it'll elevate. Like, I don't think that these figures are necessarily great sculpts, right? But I think that in the same breath, while they may not be great sculpts, with this being a great sculpt, it elevates these up a bit, like the rising tide lifts all ships sort of deal. And I would highly recommend that my mainline collectors out there at least consider it as an option. On top of that, if you still wanted the Hasbro one, I'm not trying to deter you from that at all, but perhaps consider it for robot mode, or vice versa. These would probably work great in a robot mode sense also for a more stylized collection. So yeah, I guess I just want to raise the consideration for it because it does deserve some love. There it is with a Legends assortment, Magic Square, Optimus, New Age Brawn, and Iron Factory Tarn. And I think that even for an Iron Factory collection, it probably should be considered. The size is super imposing. It's stylized in all the kind of right ways that would fit in, I think, with a lot of Iron Factory stuff. So yeah, definitely, I think you guys should think about it. I think this is an interesting piece because I think it fits in a lot of different ways that we may not have expected necessarily. And lastly, there it is with some masterpiece offerings, and I'm not sure that this does the trick, at least not for me anyway. If it does for you, I always say scale is in the eye of the beholder. If it works for you, it works for you. I'm not here to deter. But I'm not sure that I find that as convincing as the other two alternatives that I just showed. Final thoughts wise, let's start with the negatives. One of my big issues is that portion of the pelvis right above between the hips or waist and hips. That little gap in there is just unsightly, and it sometimes makes the crotch look weird, as you can see here when you go to pose it. Speaking of posing, he does have some articulation limitations. Obviously, the Mixmaster shoulder is impinged by the cab. The ankle rockers are limited. The knees are limited. And it's even a little hard to manipulate the bulk of the thighs around the hips. But as you can see, you can still get him in a pretty dynamic pose. And the last thing I want to mention is that as you go to manipulate him, sometimes stuff does come undone, like Duran. These side pieces here, they really should have tabbed into something. There are little tabs, and they might fit in underneath this little panel here, but I can't for the life of me get them in there. So I'm not sure if they're meant to, but if they are definitely not the most user-friendly thing in the world. Also, like the tires on the back of the thighs and stuff, that has a tendency to come undone. The hip or plates here on the thigh that rotate up, they have a tendency to come undone. Stuff like that. And then the last thing I want to mention, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander, the hips and the ratchets, right? This is about as far as you get. If you go one notch further, down he goes. So same sort of order of business we see all the time. Distributing the weight is not easy, and this guy suffers from it as well. Positives wise, I do have a lot to say about it. It connects, like all the connection points are super solid. I think it looks really cohesive. I think it looks good as a set. There's a lot of stylization and sort of leeway taken, and somehow they still really made it work. And I think the character of Devastator still really comes through. While there are some articulation limitations, there is more than enough to get you by in most sort of posing circumstances. I also love how the guns connect to form the major gun, and I like the use of the crane with the targeting system and all that. I think all that stuff is clever. I think it looks cool, you know, and it's relatively fun. So it is ultimately a recommend for me. It's not the strongest thing I've ever looked at, but it's far from the weakest. And honestly, if I were to go through all the combiners of third-party history, it would certainly be more towards the top for solid than towards the bottom at a very, very, very affordable price, as we all know. So yeah, recommend for me. Pretty well done. Anxious to see what they have in the future. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.